Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello everybody and welcome to the fourth round of the iRacing Radical Challenge. I am Ron Mons, all alone in the booth today, and joining us in the production hauler is Samuli Kumo, as he will for all the races this year. Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting race today. Interesting track, there's not too many competitors. We got really tricky track, 15 corners to negotiate, a lot of elevation change, a lot of heavy braking zones too, especially going into turn 5, I think. That'll probably be a very tricky zone for these drivers. You have a bit of elevation change. The rear end gets a bit light going into the brakes there, so I think that'll be a really tricky spot to look out for, but I think it'll be an interesting race. It'll be chock full of action, and I think we'll have a great show tonight. So, as we are currently in qualifying now, as we are riding on board with Felix Samoas, going into, I believe, the chicane. I could be wrong. It's very slow, yeah, obviously, 71 miles an hour. Going a bit slow. This will be a tricky section as well, I think, you know, just not a lot of room for error. A lot of the times in the real races you see here, a lot of chances for mistakes here, so we go through the very fast section of this part of the track. Going into the turn 11 and 12 section here, this might be a bit of a challenge for the drivers as well. Got a bit of elevation change. You got some very fast corners, which from my personal experience are not very good in these cars. Doesn't really have the best balance to negotiate the fast turns very well, or the bumps for that matter, which, it being a bit of an old school track, this track being opened in 2003, very old asphalt here, so I think there's going to be a lot of bumps for these drivers to negotiate as well, as we see Felix Samoas starting his timed lap. Samoas has done really well in the series so far. Of course, he got caught up in a bit of a schism at the start, kind of saw a very rare mistake from him, as his car really couldn't negotiate a bump real well going through turn 1 on the first lap at Sebring. But other than that, he's had a very good start to the year so far, so if he can keep it on the road, I think he will probably be the driver to look out for today. We got, as we were following Robert Woodward, he's also had a bit of an up and down year so far as well. You know, he had a bad start to the year, crashed out in Road America, then had a pretty decent drive, showed some very good speed towards the end of the second race of the season in Zandvoort, and then last week in Sebring got caught up in that massive start crash. If you haven't seen that, I would recommend looking at this race after today's broadcast, because that was easily the best race so far this year. We had an upset winner, a lot of interesting racing going on there, so it was a very good race last week in Sebring. Not as much participation today, but I think it'll still be a very close field, as we see Woodward go 9th. I was going to mention Sam Fitzpatrick, who is actually part of the Apex Racing TV crew. He might also be one to look out for, as we see Samoa's coming to the line. Let's see what time he sets, and it is a... Let's wait for the time to update. Oh, 6th place, a 121.6. You know, I said he might be one to look out for, but unless he can pull a rabbit out of the hat for this next qualifying lap, he might be starting where he's not really familiar with starting, well, I wouldn't say towards the back, really in the midfield where a lot of the carnage happens on these opening laps, not just here in the other Radical Racing Challenge, but really across iRacing as a whole. The midfield is usually pretty hectic, so we go into the tight chicane complex here. Killer curbs, you can see how giant the curbs are. He rides a curb a little bit there. You don't want to take a lot through there. It's kind of like getting a haircut, you know. You don't want to take too much off the top, and that's really how you got to negotiate all the curbs here. You just got to give them a light kiss. Oops, saw a little bit of lawn mowing there. As we go into the turn 11-12 complex. As I said, might be very tricky through here, especially on exits. Trying to get the throttle on, trying to strain up the wheel, and just trying to get a good exit at that turn with the elevation change as well. From my experience with this car, the car does not respond very well with sudden jumps and sudden, kind of a bit light with the rear end. I know going into, I believe, turn 5 at Zandvoort, as we see Samoa's go 2nd. Yeah, he did pull a bit of a rabbit out of the hat on that 2nd lap. He's the closest to Fitzpatrick that anyone has managed so far in this qualifying session. Still got a couple seconds left, I should say. A few drivers to complete their laps, but I think that might be your front row. That might be Sam Fitzpatrick and Felix Samoa's completing your front row. We're riding on board with Levy here. From New England, same part of the country I'm from. I love the red, wine, blue scheme. Always a fan of red, wine, blue cars, so we see him drop off, and we're going to take a look at the starting grid for tonight's race. Sam Fitzpatrick taking the pole. He's a member of our Apex Racing TV crew, so I'm going to mind my P's and Q's when talking about him so I don't get flamed in the chat. Felix Samoa is starting alongside. Again, continuing the good run he's had so far. Mjaran Ayani in 3rd. He's been a bit up and down so far this year. Mika Hulkinen, he's had some pretty good performances so far this year. Grabbed the pole in Sebring. Of course, that race didn't go too well. He crashed in the first corners with Samoa's. We got Zuccarelli in 5th, and Michael Ritzberger in 6th. Oscar Martin in 7th. Carlos Gonzalez in 8th. We are following him. Levy in 9th, a second and a half off. Wow. Field is unusually spread out. I mean, once you get past 6th, the field is spread out quite significantly. Woodward in 10th. Puratoa in 11th. Richard in 12th, as we can take a look at the rest of our starting grid. Fidel Epicaroa in the number 14 car, currently in 13th. 40 in 14th, Mark Flowers in 15th, Andreas Frederick in 16th, and Gary Hobson, who did not set a time, rounding off your starting grid. 17 drivers today, not a lot of participation, but, you know, a field doesn't have to be massive for it to be a great race, as we again ready for the start. It's Sam Fitzpatrick in his first appearance in the series so far on the pole, as we get the 5 red lights out, and it's pretty even keel start between the two of them. They're going nearly going 3 wide. Samoa's and Fitzpatrick going side by side through the first couple of corners. Samoa's is going to have a good run here. He's on the inside. I think he might get that position, and yes, he does. But apart from those two, pretty clean towards the back so far. Let's cross our fingers, hope for the best. Hopefully there's not too many accidents in this race. Hopefully we can have a bit of a change of pace compared to how the Radicals have been so far this year. Samoa's running a bit wide. Oh, just as I say that, we have bunch of cars scattering all over the place. Zuccarelli going off the track and dropping back like a rock through the grid, through the field, I should say, as we see Samoa's having a pretty uncomfortable lead, I would say. Fitzpatrick really keeping him on his toes as we negotiate the first lap so far. Besides that incident towards the back, though, pretty clean so far, not too many incidents, so hopefully we can have that for the rest of the race. We see them going through the turn 11-12 complex now. Yeah, you know, I was saying Samoa's, he might be, I mean, he's been the most consistent so far. He's been the probably the fastest driver we've had so far this year. As we see Woodward looking for a move around the outside in the final section. Look for it, that may cost him a little bit. He'll have the inside going through the final corner. So besides that one driver we had go off, that was Zuccarelli, who has now towed back to the pits. Besides that, however, pretty clean start. We're going to get a replay of the start, and yeah, ooh, Samoa's, yeah, ooh. Actually lost the lead there. I completely missed that. My apologies, but yeah, mowed the grass through there, you know. Samuli in the production booth, we had a chat with him after the first race at, actually it was the second race at Zandvoort, when I said that the car would understeer going into the corners and oversteer coming out, and he compared it to the old V8 supercar, so anyone that's driven that, you might be able to relate to that experience. I experienced a lot of that stuff as well. See, we see Martini, interesting strategy there with the curbs a little bit. I'm not sure if that was really a good call from him. He went wide a bit there, as we see a car go very wide towards the back on the side-by-side coming out of the turn. But yeah, besides a couple incidents here and there, Samoa's doing a bit of lawn mowing coming out of the final corner. Been pretty clean so far, as we see Woodward go for a move on Gonzalez for 6th. Pretty good move there, pretty textbook overtake there, as we're riding on board with Richard coming through the final 2 corners here. And is he going to look for going down the inside at the final corner? He's not going to have a good run coming out of this corner. That move is not going to stick. Might be an interesting place to go there. Oh, they're going nearly 3 wide going into the turn. There's Frederick. Look for a move there on Richard, I believe it was. And we'll see Gary Hobson now in the mix as well. We got a 4-car gaggle here, so yeah, some action towards the middle of this field. Really action all over the place. It's just not really too many overtakes. We might see 3 wide into here. We do. Ooh. That was Hobson locking it up there, going very wide. Not going to have a good corner, losing a spot there. I mean, as I said, that's going to be a very tricky corner. These cars do not respond very well to the weight being balanced in strange places. The weight balance is really key, especially when hitting the brakes here. I was more focused on blocking the rears, but that was obviously a front lock up there from Hobson. So, tough corner from him. Maybe he can gather up his stuff and maybe pull back to the other cars ahead, as we see Gaggle up ahead of them. Oh, boy. Oh, dear. That was Richard, yeah. Tough. I mean, as I said earlier, going through 11 and 12. Bit of the weight transfer up, as we see. There's Hobson going off. Oh, no. Right as I was talking about him possibly going, oh, this might be a very, okay, I was going to be very worried about a possible dangerous rejoin there, but thankfully no incident for the rejoin. But tough break for Hobson, very tough third lap from him. Yeah, I was just talking about him possibly trying to make up the lost time he had from that mistake, and just as quickly as I said that, boom, he goes right off the track. We might have to look at a replay for that. I mean, the overheating tires in this car have been a concern and probably will be a concern throughout the rest of this season. So we're going to get a replay of the Hobson incident here. Going through turns, well, there's a car spin. That was Richard spinning, as we saw the smoke, and yeah, just lost it over the little crest in the road there. And while saying that, the weight balance of these things can really come back to bite you over those lumps, as I call them. Just again, the rear end light, and if you make any kind of adjustment on the steering, you are screwed, and you're probably going to spin. So very tough break for him. He's currently running in 16th, 34 seconds back of the lead, so he is pretty much hopelessly out of contention, as we see Ritzberg nearly rear-ended the back of Frederick there. Yeah, interesting strategies here. What I really love about this track is there's a lot of opportunities to go for different lines, go for different moves. For a series like this, where the cars are really as on edge as they are, and there's really no room for error, and if you make any sort of mistake, you're pretty much done for. It's creating some decent racing here so far. I won't say it's the best in the world, as we see Ritzberg, oh boy, he nearly went for a visit in the gravel trap there. He had a very sudden spurt of understeer, as we might see him mow the grass there. I think he got away with that. You see Frederick coming very close to the back of Gonzalez. He might go for an overtake there next lap if he has the guts to go for an overtake there. We saw the move that Hobson tried earlier, and that did not work out for him at all. So maybe we'll see Frederick go for an overtake. I know there's certainly a lot of overtaking opportunities at this track. And yeah, so far, pretty decent racing. Somewhat close. I saw a bit of tires, saw a bit of smoke up there, so maybe a driver might have had an incident going through turn 5. Yeah, apart from that, I think this is the closest battle on track between Gonzalez and Frederick. Not a lot going on unless Gonzalez makes a mistake. Knowing my luck, I probably just jinxed him. Ooh, Frederick might go for a switchback here. He went wide a bit. Is he going to go for a move on the inside? No, he is not. I think that's a good move. I think he's going to keep his nose clean. He's going to keep in behind Gonzalez and maybe go for an overtake here into turn 1. I haven't mentioned turn 1. This might also be a very tricky turn for these drivers. You know, a lot of elevation change there, and a very medium speed corner there, and the medium speed corners do not respond very well with these cars. I can tell you from experience. As we see, great run from Frederick. It looked like he was going to go for a move there. He might go for a move, just not close enough. Gonzalez went a bit wide though. Ooh, I thought Gonzalez might have made a slight mistake there and was going to go for a move on Gonzalez, but just not close enough in the early stage of this race. So this is really that's the battle that we will keep our subtle attention on, but this is the battle for the lead here between Fitzpatrick and Samoas. They've been really neck and neck throughout a majority of this race. A lot of their times have been within about 1 or 2 tenths of each other. Really just no room for error. These two are driving at their best, pulling away from Ianni, currently running a third, 2.5 seconds back of the lead, and about 2 seconds back of both of them. So these two, I wouldn't say they're in their own zip code at this point, but certainly they have staked their claim on the race so far. Samoa's, obviously, if you've seen our races of this series before, he's been very fast this year, been very consistent. Had he not been involved in that lap-on incident at Sebring, that probably was his race to win. Very fast driver. Yeah, just very fast, very consistent as well. Not prone to many mistakes. We haven't seen him screw up a lot in the series, but I think he has a very tough challenge today with Fitzpatrick, as we saw Fitzpatrick pull about a half a second on him through the first few corners alone. Fitzpatrick is on it. Ooh, went a bit wide through there, hit the curb. Probably a bit more than he wanted, but hey, he's still been pulling the gap. It's now up to 1.2 seconds between these two. And if we look on the timing sheets, yeah, that is Frederick and Gonzalez, and Frederick finally gets a move done going into the chicane. Like a very decent overtake. Ooh, there's a stack up there. Nearly see Frederick go off, then Ritzberger nearly hit the back of Gonzalez there. So that was a bit interesting, seeing those couple lock up there, a couple puffs of smoke as we see Ritzberger go for a move on Gonzalez. Yep, very, very clean overtake there. Very indomitable overtake there, as we see. Oh, Gonzalez went off the track there. Maybe he might have overheated those tires. Maybe he's just been working those tires to death in the early stages of this race, and he's just slowly feeling the pain of the tires just being worn out in the middle part of this race. We're only 8 laps into the 17-lap affair here at Barber Motorsports Park, as we see the battle for 12 between Flowers and Fiore. Fiore, the South African, sorry. Great English there. He might go for an overtake here going into turn 1. Looked like he was going to go for it. I think he backed out of that. I think that might have been a good call. You know, it looks on... Oh, boy, that was nearly an accident there. That would have been perfect timing on my end. Turn 1, it looks like on paper that would be a good overtaking opportunity, but with the elevation change and with the speed going through that corner, that's really not a good one, as we see Forey go for an overtake there into turn 5. He goes really wide, hits the grass. That is not a good overtake from him. That was... I could kind of see that coming from a mile away. He took a lot of speed going into that turn and paid dearly for it. He might get overtaken by Levy here, who... Levy, he started towards the back. He didn't have the best qualifying in the world, if I remember correctly. Still towards the back, not the best race from him, but he's still keeping his own. As we see Woodward, he managed to get back, he's dropped back quite a bit. I know he was ahead of Frederick and Ritzberg and Gonzalez when those three were battling a couple of laps ago, and now he's really dropping back. He might have done a number on those tires in this race. It was a little bit wide through there. It's just, I think the pressure might be getting to him slightly. I mean, seeing two radicals, some of the fastest guys in the midfield, basically knocking on your door, might be a bit of a pressure-inducing situation. As we see Frederick, I don't think he'll go for a move there. He might go for the switchback. He might have a good run. Woodward had a big snap coming out of turn 5. Frederick might go for an overtake here. He looked at it, but that just not really a smart area to overtake, if I'm being honest. Unless you're miles faster than the driver ahead of you, I don't think that'd be a really, I wouldn't say smart overtaking opportunity. It's just really a opportunistic overtaking opportunity at best. You'd have to have worlds of speed, worlds more speed than the other driver ahead of you to pull off a move like that at that corner, because it's very tight. It's street circuit-esque in the way that's just really tight. It's like a street circuit, like a tire bundle chicane. I don't know if anyone has ever seen. There's this one video circling around YouTube of the track modifications that Formula One made to some of their circuits in the light of the death of Ayrton Senna, where they just put a bunch of weird chicanes. As we see Frederick might go for an overtake there, and nope, just not close enough. But really, some of those like really tight, frankly really awful chicanes, it's kind of what that is. It gives the same feeling. I do like that chicane. I think it's a very interesting challenge for the drivers. It keeps them on their toes, certainly. As we see Frederick, he might go for an overtake here into turn 5. He's a lot closer than he was last lap. He's going to go for it down the inside. As long as he keeps those tires rolling and doesn't lock them up, he's going to get the move done, and he did. Woodward is now being challenged by Ritzberg. Ritzberg followed Frederick through, so bad couple of corners for Woodward, but he might fight back here. As we see Ritzberger go off the track. Oh boy. It looked like he was going to save it there, but then had that half spin and then goes into the gravel track. He drops from, looked like it was going to be, well, he was in 8th, looked like it was going to be in 7th, and now he's stuck in 9th. About a second behind those guys, so we're going to see a replay here. I definitely guarantee he might have touched the grass here, going side by side there. No, he didn't touch the grass. He just went in with way too much speed. Look, he nearly got saved there, then just locked up those rears again and got stuck in the grass. Tough break for him, you know, just, again, the driver, the level of competition in this series is extremely, extremely close. So you want to see a lot of these drivers, you know, go for an overtake, but with how high of a caliber of competition we have throughout this field, you really got to go for some opportunistic overtakes, and that was a bit opportunistic from him. Oh, as we see Herrera go off, that was a big hop there. That was, oh, that looked like an Olympic. That looked like ski jumping with the other Radical SR8s here on iRacing, and yeah, that screwed him over there. I think he, I don't know, he might have to see his chiropractor after this, because that was a pretty big launch. I've never really seen anything like that here before. So yeah, I mean, turn 1, that's pretty tricky area, because you got to carry just the right amount of speed going through there. As we see the battle between these two, Forey and Flowers. You know, we saw Forey go off earlier at that exact corner. He just carried way too much speed going in there, and this time he gets the move done. We'll see if Flowers might get back at him in the upcoming corners. No, he does not. He does not have a good enough run. Forey manages to take 12th, has a bit of a lock up there. It's not going to do him many favors exiting this corner, but he manages to get the move done. He avenges himself from how that went last time around when he tried to go for that overtake into turn 5. So yeah, pretty decent overtake from Forey there. He has a lot of pace. It's just he needs to keep it on the road and keep those tires moving. You know, the Radicals this season are really susceptible to locks. I experienced, you know, locking rears, locking fronts, locking all fours. As we see Flowers lock up quite bad there, went a bit wide. We might see Zuccarelli go for it here. Oh, he's going to go around. Ooh, I thought he was going to go for a around the outside overtake there. That probably would have been a one-way ticket into the grass and maybe into the wall. He looks for it going into 1. Flowers goes a bit wide. Zuccarelli is going to have the run, and he's going to get the move done. Pretty decent overtake from him. That is, hey, as you see on our screen, overtake, that's his team name, so he got the overtake done in the overtake car, so pretty good overtake from him. I think he was, as we see Forey go off again in pretty much the exact same manner that he went off earlier. Yeah, I mean, if we can get a replay of that, that would be very nice if our lovely Samuli could get a replay of that incident. I almost guarantee that that was probably in very similar fashion to the incident he had earlier, just locking up the fronts, or just carrying way too much speed in here. Yeah, carrying way too much speed. Oh, ho, ho. How he managed not to go all four into the grass and even the gravel there is, honestly, that's a Christmas miracle. I think he should probably buy a lottery ticket after this. The fact that he didn't have a bigger incident there and didn't lose more time. I mean, still lost 2 positions. That's obviously not a good thing to have, but... Oh, as we see Woodward go off there. Oh, Woodward has major issues. He has the ball. Dang it. We were talking about he's had topsy-turvy year so far, and what looked like a decent performance from him. He was running 6th, got overtaken by Frederick, dropped down to 7th, and then, as we saw, I don't know what happened there. Maybe his screen froze or something. I've had that happen before. Screen just blacks out mid-corner, and you kind of just have no idea where you're going. I had that during a Formula Ford qualifying session about a week ago, so really tough break from him. It was looking like a pretty decent, what looked like to be a pretty decent run, as we see the battle between Gonzalez and Ritzberger. Ritzberger might go for the move down the inside. Oh! Oh, no. Oh, what in the world was that? I don't have words for what I just saw. That was, I guess, I don't know, we'll have to see what happened there, and obviously the drivers can speak for themselves, but it looked like a mix of either, I don't know, Gonzalez maybe brake checking him, braking a little bit harder than Ritzberger was expecting, or just Ritzberger, you know, just not realizing that his brake pedal was in the middle instead of on the far right. So gonna get a replay of this incident. That was a bizarre one. I really don't know what to say for that, as we see them going into the turn 11-12 complex. I think that was Gonzalez. That was pretty poor, I think, from the both of them, really. But I think Gonzalez, it looked like he hit the brakes really hard. I've never really seen any driver do that. I mean, we were talking about maybe tires being a bit of coming into play towards the end of this race, but I don't think he'd have to hit the brakes that hard going through there. As we see, that was Martin, Oscar Pera Martin, hitting the curb there. I think he hit the curb in similar fashion earlier, but got away with it then. Didn't really get away with it this time around, as we see him mow the grass there. Yeah, oh, and he's gonna spin out. Yeah, these drivers really struggling in this second half of the race towards the final closing stages. Gonzalez is gonna get another position. You gotta feel bad for Ritzberger, though. I don't think he could have done anything. Really, I was caught out when I saw, when we were riding on board with Ritzberger, when you just saw Gonzalez's car basically stop going into that turn. I'm not really sure what on earth happened there, so might get flack for that, for saying it, but I think that was a pretty, that was a pretty strange move. I don't really know what to say. I'm effectively speechless. You know, we're gonna move on from that. Talk about the battle for the lead, which really isn't much of a battle. We saw Fitzpatrick and Samoa's they were about a half a second between each other when we cut around lap 8, I believe it was. I don't remember exactly, but now it's just Fitzpatrick is running away with this win. Samoa is 4 seconds behind. As long as he keeps it clean, though, a second place run is still a second place run. You know, silver might not be gold, but it's still a good run at the end of the day. He's going to certainly cement himself if we keep points for this series, just of these races. I think Samoa's would probably be the other just unstoppable force at the top of the championship battle, and we see Fitzpatrick in first, Samoa's in second, and Ayani, we haven't really talked about him too much. He's just been running a smooth, clean race. I say that, I probably just jinxed him. He'll probably crash in a couple corners, knowing the way my commentary courses usually go. Yeah, pretty quiet race from him. He's run it clean. He hasn't really been involved in any incidents. I remember the first race of the year, he started towards the front row, as we see Gonzalez off again. That, I believe, is at... We're going to see him flex spin. I'm not sure where that was. That's at the final corner. Yeah, that's a flex spin on the pit entry lane. Bad couple of laps from him. First, we saw that bizarre incident with him and Ritzberger. Then he moved up into 6th and then just had that really strange incident going through the last couple of corners. So it's really just about for the final 2 laps, at least for him, just kind of damage control. Try not to drop back enough. Woodward, we saw him hit the wall earlier, but he's still up in the fight. He's battling for 8th with Ritzberger. It might not be much of a fight. I think that wall contact might have screwed over Woodward's car. I don't think his car was very happy with that contact he had with the wall. You can see a very big snap there going into the chicane as we are following Fitzpatrick as he comes through the final couple, the first couple of corners. For the final lap of the race, it's been a pretty dominant performance from him. Grabbed the pole by, I believe it was about 0.07, 700ths of a second. Pretty close. I believe it's one of the closest gaps between first and second that we've seen so far this season. But still, I mean, ever since the green flag came out, as we see Ritzberger go off, you know, he was battling up with Woodward, and then might have to see what incident he had there. We saw drivers losing it with a hump in the road there, but I don't really know what happened there, to be brutally honest, as he comes into the pits. Yeah, I think his race is done as we go back with Sam Fitzpatrick. Pretty dominating performance from him. Samoas has closed up slightly. He's now within 4 seconds of the lead, but as we come through the final couple of corners, unless something goes cataclysmically wrong for Fitzpatrick, it's going to be a pretty smooth cruise to victory as he's coming through the second to last corner. And now the final corner, the checkered flag is going to be out as Sam Fitzpatrick, representing Apex Racing TV, is going to come and take the checkered flag to win here in Barber. Pretty dominant performance. Samoas picked up a lot of time, picked up a big gap, had a pretty fast lap. I mean, I guess Fitzpatrick was really just cruising at the end. We saw him, as we saw, he had a 121.5 compared to Samoas in the 120s, so I think Fitzpatrick was probably cruising towards the end of that race. I can't really blame him with how big of a lead he had, but overall, a very, very smooth drive from him. You know, it's just not really, no mistakes from him, no mistakes from really a lot of the field. We only saw a couple mistakes. We saw Woodward go off in that pretty bizarre incident. I'm not really sure what happened to him. Saw Fiore go off a couple times as he is going to come home in 11th. Tough break for him. Actually, no, going to finish down 13th. He just had another incident. Tough race for him, I would say. You know, he showed a lot of speed, but just couldn't really keep the car on the road. But overall, besides a couple of incidents here and there for the likes of Hobson, Ritzberger, Gonzalez, and Fiore, I think a pretty clean race. You see Aparico down at the bottom. I'm not really sure what happened to him. We saw him drop out of the race early on. I'm not entirely sure what might have happened to him, but quick exit, swift exit from this race as the last of the drivers are coming to take the checkered flag. Fiore, tough race for him. Couple of incidents. Might have to get a replay of what happened there as we see Fitzpatrick. As we saw the checkered flag moment from him. Him might be doing some celebratory donuts, and he is. God bless America, even though the man's from the UK. Pink car doing some pretty awesome donuts on the main straightaway as we look at your results from today. Fitzpatrick taking a pretty dominant victory ahead of Samoas, who was my real pick to win. As we see, here we saw Fitzpatrick hit the wall doing some donuts. That would not be ideal. The iRacing fabricators would not be very happy with him if he did that. Ayani in third, Hulkinen in fourth. Pretty quiet race from him as well, barely mentioned him. Frederick had some nice battles throughout the race, finishes in fifth. Martin, after a couple of strange, I wouldn't say strange incidents, it was just really hitting the curbs. He comes home in eighth. Richard, didn't really talk about him often, comes home in seventh. Woodward had that incident earlier, finishes in eighth. Pierrota had he showed up on our screens occasionally, but really had a quiet race. Zuccarelli had a couple of incidents, finishes in 10th. Flowers in 11th. Levy in 12th. Forey had those incidents throughout the race. Tough break for him. It looked like he was going to come home in 11th, and as I said that, he spun coming through the back section of the track as we complete your field with Hobson, Ritzberger, Gonzalez, and Aparico failing to finishing the race in the pits. So tough race for those two. Tough race for a lot of these drivers, and for others it was just smooth sailing for the most part. Those are your finishers from today's race here at Barber Motorsports Park. An interesting affair, I would say. Not too much else to say. And I'm glad that these races have been getting cleaner compared to the first race of the year that we had in Road America, when everyone was really getting to grips with the way the cars drove and just the general lack of grip and lack of really anything that these cars had at the start of this season, to now where the drivers are getting a bit of a hang of it. It's still very difficult. We're still seeing mistakes out of these drivers, but that's really the car talking and not so much the driver, I would say. And we are going to get an interview with Sam Fitzpatrick, your race winner, who, if I can spit those words out of my mouth, we're going to get an interview with Sam Fitzpatrick, your race winner here at Barber. How you doing, Sam? How was that race?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me up. First time I think that we've actually spoken as well, Ron. So this isn't usually how people meet in an interview, but it's good to have you on board. And I'm in a state of shock, honestly. I was expecting to come into here, make some jokes about how I won the BSR Radical Winter Series Championship, which Sam Samudi has heard a million times. But instead, I can genuinely talk about having a good race.
Yeah, it was a pretty dominant performance from you. I mean, we saw you grab the pole. I wouldn't say just barely, but it was pretty close between you and Samoa's for the top two spots in qualifying. How was it dealing with the lumps in the road? Because there's obviously a lot of elevation change, especially in some of the braking zones, especially into turn 5. How did that elevation change affect driving the car today?
Yeah, it was just part of the elements really at Barber. I mean, that qualifying lap, that second qualifying lap, was so error prone. I was absolutely shocked when I crossed the line. It was faster than my first lap, but I think it's just the way that the tyres warm up there. It's way faster on the second lap. So the fact that I was on pole, I was sort of absolutely shocked by that and quite confident going into the race. And then Felix in the first few laps was so close to me that I was thinking, oh dear, he's just going to be running me right close. But I just pretty much made no mistakes and kind of edged out that gap. And yeah, I mean, was just driving sort of 90% really, and just making sure that I didn't make too many errors, because yeah, you're absolutely right, that elevation, it's not easy to get used to around this track. It really does add a lot to it.
Now, I was going to ask you one quick question about the curbs, because curbs are bit old school at this track, I would say. It's not like the old 90s curbs that they had with F1 where they're really car killers, but the curbs here are a bit big. How did you play with the curbs throughout this race? Did you really try and touch them slightly, touch them a lot, or just really avoid them at all costs?
I think you skim them really. Honestly, I barely drive this car, so I sort of done about an hour of driving on this car track combo, and yeah, through the first fast chicane, for example, you don't really touch the curbs. And I mean, I was driving GT4s the other day around this circuit, and obviously you go absolutely full mounts over them. But if you accidentally carry a little bit too little apex speed and you hit the curb, it's not that bad really. The car doesn't react too badly. So yeah, it's sort of just finding a rhythm and yeah, not taking too many risks. It's mainly the grass, honestly, which is the danger point. Is when you dip a wheel onto the grass, that's when the car can go very easily. So yeah, the curbs, just treat them with a bit of respect, and it was alright.
Oh, I'll tell you what, that was a very good performance, especially having only 1 hour in the car, as you said. Bit of an ego-killing performance from you, I'd say, to really kick the butt of Samoa. I wouldn't say kick the butt, he held his own throughout this race, but to do as well as you did against Samoa's, who was, me personally, my pick to win, because he's been really consistent and fast throughout this year. But to come into this race with 1 hour behind the wheel of this car and just put on a pretty dominant and pretty clean performance was pretty impressive. So great driving today.
I mean, I'm as shocked as you, honestly, Ron. Like, I was fully expecting to be sort of 6th or something, and I would have very much taken that. But yeah, it was just surprising. I mean, I've honestly got to say, and this isn't plugging, like I'm racing at the Apex Racing Sim Center, and I certainly recommend people popping down whenever. But yeah, just upgrading to like properly good equipment. Like I'm using like the VRS wheelbase and wheel rim and pedals as well. And like compared to the Logitech G29 that I was using, like it does step you up a level, which I wasn't expecting the level it does. So no, it's certainly not all down to talent. I've got almost certainly better equipment than everyone else, so I can't say Corby credit.
He's humble and he's great at self-promotion. Sam Fitzpatrick, ladies and gentlemen, your race winner from tonight. Actually, I said self-promotion. It's really just general promotion. Exactly. I mean, I would... If I needed a PR guy, well, if I need a an advertiser, I think I would probably hire you. Just put my logo on your car. But yeah, very good performance from you. Very clean. So great driving tonight, man. You really put a stomping on the field tonight.
Thank you very much. Apologies, by the way, for not having a proper livery. Earlier on, I was thinking about doing livery, and I ended up watching Toy Story 4 instead. It's a really good film. I don't regret the mistake, but I did have this very nice black and pink livery instead. And also apologies for not having my face or the flag on the SDK Gaming timing either. It's been there for about 4 years, and I always have a go at people not updating it. I haven't updated it in that entire time, so I do apologize for that as well. But yes, it was still a lot of fun nonetheless.
Hey, you got the victory, man. So that's all those worries just thrown out the window because you took the checkered flag today. Great driving, man.
Exactly, and thanks to you guys as well for covering. I'm very happy that this series is still on the channel. So yeah, thanks to both of you for putting in the time to broadcast this.
Thank you. Sam Fitzpatrick, your winner tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Very good performance. I call him the ego killer. 1 hour in this car and he just puts in a performance like that. That is very good. And plus the other promotion there, that was very good. That was very subtle, I would say. You know, usually people like to joke about NASCAR drivers putting in a lot of promotion in their interviews. The NASCAR drivers should learn from him because that was A+ driving and A+ promotion there at the end. So there it is. There's really nothing else to say from this race. Good race, pretty clean, and yeah, hopefully we can have some better races in the future. So for me, Ron Mons, in the commentary booth, Samuli Kumo in the production booth, Sam Fitzpatrick, your winner, who is a valued member here at Apex Racing TV, and Aaron Smith, who unfortunately couldn't join us today. He was a bit sick tonight, so yeah, hopefully he's watching from his home, and hopefully he can join us for the next broadcast in a week's time at Watkins Glen. So for me, Ron Mons, it's been a great race, and hopefully you have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.